Hey everyone, I'm your host, Emily Lauren. Welcome to the Body Positive Podcast, where we ditch diets, normalize real bodies, and help you feel better in your own skin. Welcome everyone to the Body Positive Podcast show. Today, I'd like to welcome Dr. Karen Bryson. She is a university professor who has written over 50 books and is also known as the Curious Professor. We're going to be talking about body acceptance as we age and how books can help us accept our bodies. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So tell me first, before we get into things, about your own personal experience with body image.
Well, it's been a long journey. I'm now in my 50s. I'm a middle-aged woman. So I have gone through various periods throughout my life of body image and body acceptance. And I feel like I hit a brick wall, or kind of like loss of some of the acceptance of my body as I started to go through menopause. For me and for many women, it was a difficult time. I felt like I kind of lost control of my body completely. And your body changes, obviously, as you age. And there were just certain things that seemed to be outside of my control. I started to get curves in places that I never had curves before. So to come to a place where I could say, I feel good about that. I feel good about how I look. I feel good about aging and the aging process. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're not the same person you were in your 20s. You're not the same person you were in your 30s. As you're going through your 40s and then your 50s and then eventually into older age, you have to accept the fact that your hair is graying and you're getting wrinkles, and you're just going through the normal changes that people go through as they get older. So I feel like I want to really be in the forefront of body acceptance for people, particularly women, as we get older and we age. I think it's difficult in the society that we live in currently, where we're so focused on our external image, particularly with regard to social media.
Absolutely.
It's hard to present yourself, as I say, in an unfiltered way as a middle-aged woman, because we don't have we're starting to see more now, but we haven't seen a lot of people who have really put themselves out there as examples of what a normal, quote unquote, normal middle-aged woman looks like. And it's okay to look that way, and to accept our bodies, and to not have to feel like we have to get Botox and get fillers and use filters and do all of these things to almost pretend like we're not getting older. It's okay to get older. That's a normal thing.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me of Kate Winslet, who just came out with a new show, and there's a conversation that she had, I think, with the director, where they were going to edit out like her wobbly middle-age bits, and she demanded that they leave that in because women are dying to see people that look like them in mainstream media, and I think that's so important.
Exactly. Yeah. And that show is called Mayor of Easttown. If people haven't watched it yet, it's excellent. I really like that show a lot. And I love the fact that, she's a woman in her 40s, and she said, I want to look like a woman in my 40s. I think we need more actresses, females who are in the acting profession that are willing to say, you know what, I want to look like woman looks like in her 40s or in her 50s. It's almost like there were so many years in Hollywood where you were up to the age of 40 and then somehow you disappeared and you didn't get to see women again until they were Golden Girls. It's like, what happens to the women? You go from ingenue to Golden Girl. What about all the women in their 40s and 50s and 60s? Let's see women who are middle-aged. And there really was a dearth of women in that particular age group. And I'm glad to see that we're seeing more representation of that in the media. I think that's a very positive thing.
Exactly. It's really important that we allow women to be able to age as well, not just the men, because men are often seen as being attractive as they get older, and the opposite has been true for older women. And we really need to challenge this type of thinking, allow them to age, in real life and in the media too.
Yeah, and the other thing that really bothered me that I saw a lot of in the media, pardon me, was when you have an aging actor. So you'll see like Harrison Ford, for example, when he's in his 50s, 60s, and now even into his 70s, and he's paired with a woman in her 20s. Well,
Mhm.
come on, that's ridiculous. Let's see a middle-aged man being paired with a woman who's middle-aged. You know,
Exactly.
we don't have to have these 50 and 60-year-old men who are still, in action movies, which is great, but let's have a 50-year-old woman. And I was glad to see Halle Berry and I are a couple days apart.
There you go.
We're the same age. And I was so glad to see her in the latest version of the John Wick 3. She
Mhm.
was the, quote, female lead of that particular action movie. And I was like, yeah, they have Keanu Reeves. He's in his 50s. It's great. They cast a woman in her 50s to be the female lead in that particular action movie. I was really happy to see that. I think we need to see more of that. We can be action figures even, or anything. We should be able to have representation in middle age, in movies, and in television.
Exactly. And do you think that as women get older, they almost start to feel better about their bodies because they're sort of further away from that standard? Like sometimes I hear, it can go both ways in terms of you feel just as much pressure because you're further away from the standard, or you get to that point and you care less because it's like, you know what, I'm living my life, and I recognize that there's so much more to having a life than just appearance. How do you feel about that?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. And I really feel like there's a point at which, at least for me, I can't speak for other women, but for me, it became less about how I looked. So I felt like there was a lot of pressure, particularly in my 20s and 30s, to maintain a certain uh, standard of beauty, for lack of a better term,
Yes.
to fit into society and to feel valued and feel of worth, which is a whole nother conversation. But I think there's a point at which it was like a lot of pressure in my 40s to hold it all together, to keep it
Yeah.
together, you to still try to remain youthful. But then there's a point at which you're like, you know what, this is ridiculous. I'm
Yeah.
just going to be who I am, and that's okay. And if you don't like it, oh well, too bad.
I
That's
love
your
that.
problem, not mine. So yeah, I feel like we're getting to a point where women can embrace that and feel good about just being who they are. And it's not about how you look. I really feel very good about being in a place in my life where I'm beyond. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but I I don't care about how other people look. I want to know who
Yes.
they are as a person. I want to know what they're doing. What's exciting in your life? What are you about? What's happening? What are you doing? What are your projects? What do you feel about issues? What's happening in the world? I'm not about how people look anymore. I'm about
Exactly.
who they are and what they're bringing to the table and what exciting things they're doing.
I
And I
love
hope that
that.
people are perceiving me in the same way. It's about
Yeah.
what I'm doing and what I'm bringing out into the world. My writing projects and my podcast and all these things are so exciting. And I'm so happy and grateful that I have the opportunity to do so many creative things. And that's what I want people to see, not so
Yes.
much how I look. That is really almost to the point of being irrelevant. Like, yes, I know I am part of the creative process and people care about me as a person, but I want that to be about me, not about how I look.
Yeah, and I think we need to teach that to all women because, if we knew these things younger and younger, then there would be so much less emphasis on, our physical characteristics as opposed to all the things we can accomplish in our lives and the memories we can make. If you could pick one thing that you wish you had known when you were younger, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Um, life is short. Enjoy every moment. I sometimes it's hard for me to believe that I'm in my 50s because I don't feel, I don't want to say that old because it's really not that old by today's standards because we live so much longer, but I don't feel like I'm that much older than I was when I was in my 30s. Like
Yeah.
that point from 35 and now I'm going to be 55. So that 20-year period was such a period for me of growth and really blossoming into who I want to be as a person, as a woman, as a creative. All of those things really blossomed when between those ages of 35 to 55. And now that I'm through menopause, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm unstoppable.
You feel free. Yeah.
It's like I have it all. I don't have to worry about, all of those menopausal. I mean, for me, menopause was hell. Like
Yeah.
I had every single thing that you could deal with in menopause I dealt with. So, I mean, that's another conversation too. Um, but once you're through that, it's like, oh my gosh, I just feel so good about where I am in life and all of the things that I'm doing and accomplishing, and just not really worrying about things that are so superficial. I'm not worried about, oh, my skin is wrinkly, or,
Mhm.
oh, I have that little bit of flabbiness in my middle region that wasn't there
Yeah.
before, a few little bit of bat wings and those kind of things. I make fun of them, but oh well, they're there and I think they're going to be there now for the duration. So I've accepted them and it's okay because they really have nothing to do with what I'm doing and what I'm accomplishing.
What
My books and my podcast and all of my creative endeavors have nothing to do with the bat wings and the little bit of flab. They're irrelevant.
I love that. What are some of the other things that have helped you improve your mentality to get to that good place?
Um, I have done coaching. I
Oh,
have been,
awesome.
yeah, I have been, I did, I got in a really dark place in between the point at which I was just finishing menopause and now that I'm through menopause. I mean, it can be a difficult transition to make, um, because so much in our society is ingrained in us about what womanhood means, right?
Yes.
So those those things are gone. Those things that we so characteristically think of as contributing to our womanhood are gone. But now that opens up a lot more possibilities of other things that you can be now that you're a woman in middle age or older.
Exactly.
It's a transition, right? So um, it really helped for me. I worked with a creativity therapist,
Hmm.
really helped me to figure out what was the next stage. I felt like I needed to close that book on my younger self and open up a new book, start a new chapter with myself in middle age and older. So what was that next stage? What was that next chapter going to be? So I worked with a creativity therapist, and then I've been involved with a life coach, she calls herself a visibility coach. So I've
Oh,
been
awesome.
working with a coach, and I can't say enough how helpful it has been for me, finding those two wonderful women to work with, the creativity therapist and then the visibility coach, have been just fantastic. So I know there's a lot of opportunity now for women and even men to work with personal coaches, and I think it's wonderful. I highly recommend it. And it's an investment in yourself and it's an investment in whatever area that you're wanting to really blossom in, whether it be a lot of women and men make transitions career wise when they go into middle age because you're at a point in life where you're like, okay, I've got, another 30 years if I'm fortunate. What am I going to do with those last remaining years
Mhm.
of my life that are going to be significant? You have more years past you than you have ahead of you at this point, probably. So, what am I going to do with that last chapter that's going to be meaningful and significant? And so, a lot of people go through those transitions. So, it can be helpful to work with a personal coach, a life coach, a creativity coach, whatever type of thing that you're into. to really solidify what those things are going to be, what you're going to bring out into the world during that final period of your life.
I think that's a great point too, because I don't think a lot of women are prepared enough for the effects of aging because our society focuses so much more on preventing and slowing that aging that, we need to make these resources more available, more common, and really let them take over instead of this culture, this beauty culture that constantly is being shoved in our faces, that aging is a bad thing. And I think everyone needs to be prepared to age. And I think that coaching is a great option. I never even thought about that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fantastic for me. And I really want to um, emphasize your point that we aren't preparing men or women
Mhm.
for that aging process. And it can be very difficult for people, women in particular, but men too, because society isn't valued. Our culture, American or North American, I don't know if you're from the US or Canada, but um, in general, our society doesn't value the people who are in older generations as much
Mm.
as other societies. So, we're not like ready for the wastebasket. We're not being,
No, of course not.
floating off into an iceberg somewhere. We still have a lot to contribute in society. So yeah, I think we're starting to see more openness and talking about this. It used to be so hush hush that people didn't even talk about menopause at all. And I'm so glad to see now more women are coming out and having open discussions about the changes that we go through during that process. So that's wonderful. And then
Yeah.
beyond that, what's the next step? What are we going to
What's
do?
next? Yeah. So switching gears a bit, you're an author who writes a ton of different genres from mystery, suspense, and contemporary romance. I'm a huge fan of the romance genre because I really love predictable, happy endings. And I love the confidence that characters have. I think it's reflective of the type of people that we wish we could be like. What can we learn from romance novels or novels in general?
I think we gravitate toward reading things that we want in our lives or that we want our lives to be, or that emotional experience that we may be craving that we don't want to upset our lives necessarily and go on
Yeah.
a journey to Africa or a journey to Asia, or some things that may be out of our reach, but we can experience them through reading books. We can have that emotional experience. So I think for me as a writer, I tend to write things that I want to experience that I may not be able to experience in my real life, but I want to still have that emotional experience. So I can write it, and then other people can enjoy it too and have that emotional experience that they may not necessarily um, want to upset their life to have. You don't
Yeah.
want to constantly have affairs, but you can certainly read a romance novel and experience that thrill of falling in love again with the character that's experiencing that. So
Yeah. I also think too with like romance novels, like female sexuality is seen as so empowering. They imagine this right partner that fully accepts them. And I think as women, that's really what we want to feel is accepted and to feel unashamed of our bodies and our desires and our needs. And I think that's why, romance novels are so great at helping, redefine these even female pleasure standards, right? As in, it's not something that women should assist, it's something that women should insist upon, right?
yeah, yeah.
Rather than being the object of male desire, so often as we are portrayed in the media and society. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's excellent. And I actually know of, uh, again, a life coach who works with erotica. I
Okay,
just I just
cool.
learned about this. I heard about her the other day, and she works with erotica. And exactly what you're saying, she has women get in touch with their sexuality, feel good about their sexual selves, and she does it through the writing and reading of erotica. So I think that it can be very helpful. And we saw with 50 Shades of Grey, how that just exploded. It was like the right book at the right time for women to really start thinking, it's okay for me to express my sexuality.
Yes.
And I can do that in a very open way. And that's why I think that book was the right thing at the right time for women to really feel more comfortable and more open about expressing our healthy sexuality.
Yeah, even going back to aging, like there's so many books where you can read that have a positive spin on the aging woman and that romance is possible. And sometimes it's just self-discovery, sometimes it's finding a life partner. And I think that we all need to see more stories like that. It's unfortunate that a lot of those scripts aren't what get picked up in mainstream media and the movies that we see, but I'd love to see more of that. Why do you think books play such an important role in body acceptance?
Um, well, I think that we can, if we can't have the acceptance that we want in our daily lives, we can have a model for what that could be when we read a book.
I love
So,
that.
yeah. So it books can be read for a number of different reasons. Entertainment, a lot of people read for entertainment, but
Hmm.
they also read for education and for motivation, for enlightenment. So I think that, yes, we're being entertained when we read a romance novel or even mystery, suspense, any kind of genre, but particularly romance. So yes, we're being entertained, but we're also being enlightened, and we're also being opened up to other possibilities of things or ways of thinking or ways of being that we may not have in our own lives. And we may be able to use those as models for our own lives in the way we want our relationships to be.
I think that is a perfect perspective. Tell us how we can learn about your books and where we can find you online.
I am online at thecuriousprofessorpodcast.com. That's where my podcast is located. I'm also at karenmbryson.com. That's my main website. I also wanted to mention that I am working with another woman. Her name is CK Love, and we are putting together a project called the Glow Project.
Ooh.
That's the Glorious Ladies of Writing, and you can find us on Facebook. And we're currently looking for women writers who would like to participate in an anthology. And it's called Midlife on Fire. And it is a celebration of aging for women in midlife. So if there are any writers out there who are interested in participating, look for us, the Glow Project, Glorious Ladies of Writing. And we're on Facebook. And we're currently open for submissions.
That sounds incredible. Well, I look forward to reading that and some of your other work. Lastly, if you could offer one tip to our listeners, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to be yourself.
I love it. Perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. And I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. It was great to be a guest on your show.
Thank you. Once again, thanks for listening to today's episode. Make sure you follow us at Real Happy Daughter, and please share this with someone who needs a little more real in their life.